AEW and NXT are going head-to-head on Tuesday. Who's going to win? We are. The people watching the shows. We're going to win. Hi, I'm Wyatt. I'm going to talk to you about wrestling. So basically, the MLB playoffs are happening on TBS on Wednesday, which means AEW's Dynamite has to move its normal day from Wednesday to Tuesday just for this week. WWE's NXT also shows on Tuesday. So what's happening? WWE's putting a lot of big names on NXT. John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Paul Heyman, Asuka. It's a lot of... I don't know why I put Asuka last. She's a draw, but like I feel like maybe John Cena should, that's the needle mover, probably. But they're putting a lot on there because they want the viewers, they want the win. People can try and tell you all they want, oh, WWE doesn't care about what AEW is doing. This is definitive proof that they care at least a little bit. They care a little bit. AEW isn't exactly going down without a fight. They've booked quite a few big matches. The biggest one probably is Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson, which anytime Bryan Danielson is wrestling on TV, it feels like a match you probably want to watch. So that's a big deal. That's their counter to what WWE is doing. It's not just that match as well. There's a couple title matches on there. It's literally called Title Tuesday. 2 title matches. Feels pretty solid. Feels like you could have done maybe 1 or 2 more if you're gonna call it Title Tuesday, but I digress. Either way, both companies are putting some big stuff on the card, and honestly, we might even see some more stuff announced for NXT. It's mostly just been names, not exactly matches. The one match that I can remember off the top of my head is Carmelo Hayes versus Braun Breaker, but there's an issue with that I can get into later, but I'm going to talk about who's going to win the Tuesday night war, I guess. It's more of a battle, a skirmish even. It doesn't actually matter, but here's why. So WWE is putting a few established stars. I mean, John Cena is huge. I think this will be the first time he's ever going to be on NXT. He's not going to be wrestling a match, of course. He's just going to be in the corner of Carmelo Hayes. Paul Heyman will be in the corner of Braun Breaker for that big match. That's big. Cody Rhodes is going to be there making his return to NXT. They're going to tell you this is his first time on NXT. He was Husky Harris's trainer in NXT, okay? Back when it was a bad game show. Don't forget that. Don't let them write that out of history. Rest in peace, Wyndham Rotunda. Cody Rhodes is Husky Harris's trainer. Anyways, so we're getting that. That's gonna feel like a big deal. That match and that Cody Rhodes segment. Becky Lynch has been in NXT. She's the NXT Women's Champion right now. She's been doing that. Dominic Mysterio just won back his North American title, which that should have stayed on Trick Williams. I'm sorry, Dominic, you're getting better, and I wouldn't say Trick Williams is, miles ahead of him in terms of in-ring skill, but I think that title does a lot more for him than it does for Dominic. But Dominic does a lot more for NXT ratings than Trick Williams does, so it's a business decision. I guess I understand, but as a fan, I would prefer to see Trick Williams with the gold. Here are my issues with this booking of NXT, which I understand it's not a permanent booking strategy. This is for 1 week only to bring in viewers to say, hey, we got 1 million before AEW could this year, or whatever stuff they want to, whatever narrative the Twitter accounts and the YouTube channels want to push with this. NXT, from a pure in-ring standpoint, from a wrestling standpoint, NXT is probably the best program that WWE is putting out there right now. I can tune into NXT every week. I don't need to know what's going on with the matches. I can stop watching and jump back in, and I can enjoy it because there's a focus on in-ring work. It is kind of reminiscent of early NXT, not 2017 when it was at its best, in my opinion, but 2015, where you can tell these guys are still they're training and they're growing and they're learning as performers, and they're doing exactly what the point of NXT is. It's a developmental territory. You fast forward to 2018, or especially 2019, it feels like Triple H is trying to make it the focus at that time, which kind of worked, but once AEW came around, it got messy because people wanted to see that style of wrestling on a bigger scale and as the focal point of a company. And that's what AEW was. It was there to satisfy the needs of, a type of wrestling fan that was being neglected by WWE. The WWE main roster in 2019 was being so poorly booked, and that eventually bled over into NXT because that was what was going head to head with AEW. And they were trying their hardest, but man, you go back and watch some of those takeover matches especially, and you go, wow. I see why Vince McMahon said, no, we're ditching all this. We're going NXT 2.0, rainbow colors, all of that. It's not easy to watch, especially if you were a big fan of NXT back in 2017, like I was. But that's the past. The present is people are developing characters, they're developing in-ring skills, and they're developing just their overall all-around game. People are getting better in NXT, and you can see that on a week-to-week basis. NXT TV is pretty fun to watch. The characters are vibrant and interesting. Noam Dar is awesome, which is not something I thought I would say post 2018, or I guess ever before that either. Noam Dar was a geek. He was just a cruiserweight who was there to mostly take losses to Pac or Enzo Amore, which, ouch. Tyler Bates still killing it, and then you get to the top end talent of NXT. Ilya Dragunov, Carmelo Hayes, Braun Breaker, so many of them are doing so good in NXT. But here's my problem with it. They've been doing so good for a while, it feels like it's time for a lot of them to make their way up to the main roster, to the big leagues. Carmelo Hayes has been in NXT for a while. Braun Breaker has been in NXT for a while. Those two have been killing it. They are consistently the best parts of that program. Braun Breaker is the best spear in wrestling right now. Sorry, not sorry, Roman Reigns. Maybe if you wrestled more than twice every 6 months, I would be able to give you a little bit more credit for your spear, but I barely get to see it. Hell, Solo Sikoa's Samoan Spike is more of Roman Reigns' finisher than the spear. But all that's to say, I don't want to say they're wasting away in NXT, but that's your developmental brand. These guys are stars. You can feel it. Braun Breaker as a monster heel who is attempting murder on a weekly basis, that's fucking awesome. Call him up. He's ready. He's ready to go. You can make him the next big heel. Carmelo Hayes is him. He's fucking awesome. Send him up. The crowd is ready for it. The main roster crowd will be able to attach to these guys because they're just cool. They're just awesome. There's a universal appeal. You don't need to build them up to heights where, you can't have them lose to anyone. You can't. None of that's necessary. They're there. They're ready. Send them up. Even Ilya Dragunov, who just won the NXT title, which, congrats Ilya. I mean, it's a great move, but I don't want to see him hold on to that belt for too long because Gunther needs opponents, man. Get up there. He's ready. He's the most intense motherfucker on that roster. He's ready to go with the main roster boys. It feels like we're getting to a point where NXT is starting to not feel like the developmental, where it's starting to feel like, oh, NXT is the best programming that WWE has. I don't want to see that. Keep it as developmental because it's what works. Grayson Waller got called up to the WWE main roster, and that's been working. He's been fitting in well there. Has he been wrestling a lot? No, but he's fitting in because he has a talk show. So he's the counter-programming to The Miz on Raw, I guess. Whatever. It's working. And it feels like the reason they're keeping a lot of people down in NXT and they're bringing other people down to NXT like Becky Lynch and Dominic Mysterio is because it's the closest they have as a head-to-head with AEW. I don't want to give it too much thought. I don't want to act like, this is fact, but to me, it feels like they're trying to reignite something there. AEW's ticket sales and their viewership numbers have been on a decline. It hasn't been looking the best domestically, and it feels like they're looking at that and saying, maybe we can one-up them with NXT and bring down established stars to pop those ratings and make AEW look worse, which, hey, it's a strategy. I don't know how viable it is long-term because at a certain point, the main roster is going to need some talent. I've been trying to work out a fantasy booking for a Cody Rhodes or an LA Knight world title reign. And the biggest issue I see with both of those, especially Cody Rhodes, is the lack of established main event challengers on the main roster. If you're waiting until next WrestleMania to let Cody Rhodes have his moment and win the title off Roman, if you exhaust all of these big heel challengers for him right now, what's going to happen when he wins the title? It's not going to be a successful run because he's already faced all these guys. The only opponent I can think of is a heel Kevin Owens if they decide to pull the trigger on that, because he's going to have to get through heel Drew McIntyre on his way to Roman Reigns. He's going to have to get through maybe Bobby Lashley on his way to Roman Reigns. It's a tough point for WWE because they just don't have the guys, in my opinion, to book out as far in advance as they want to. Gunther needs to win that world title off Seth Rollins. His Intercontinental title reign has been great, but he needs a world title because that's the fucking guy. All in all, the main event stars they have are their main eventers, but they're only able to produce maybe one new one every year. LA Knight has been awesome, but the plan was never to make him a main eventer. He just got over and they're running with it. Will LA Knight ever win a world title in WWE? It's hard to say. I don't know how long he's going to stay over. With the way the WWE crowd is right now, there's a chance he stays over for a while. But if not, he may end all of this stuff with nothing really to show for it. I would have put the US title on him just to say that he had one accolade, at least, just to propel him. And I know he's getting the team with John Cena, but that US title doesn't even get defended on pay-per-views anyways. He could absolutely be holding that while teaming with John Cena at Fastlane, and it wouldn't make a difference. But back to the heart of what I was saying. NXT is in great shape right now, but I think they need to start putting more focus on the developmental side of things if they want this model to work like it's intended and like it has been working. The focus they've been putting on Dragon Lee is incredible, and honestly, he might be ready for the main roster. I mean, he proved that he can he's great. Dragon Lee's awesome. But you can keep him in NXT for a little bit. Build him up as one of your next stars. A Dragon Lee NXT title run sounds fucking awesome. The NXT model was always used to send up guys once they were ready. A guy like Braun Breaker in the old NXT model, he probably wouldn't have been NXT champion, but say he was, as soon as he lost that sucker, main roster call up. Post WrestleMania, post SummerSlam, random episode of Raw, it doesn't matter. Because he's great. That's what you've been doing. You gave him that title run so he could establish himself as a great wrestler. It's obvious he's a great wrestler. Call him up, let him do his thing on the main roster. And I don't think this 1 week of sending main roster guys down to NXT to counter-program AEW is going to really matter in the long run, but it's just part of my concerns as to the state of WWE programming and the state of NXT right now. Enough about WWE, onto the AEW side of things. What does this week, Title Tuesday, mean for AEW? I'm a big AEW guy. I love AEW. I don't miss an episode. I think it's the best wrestling on television. What happens if they get beat by NXT in the ratings? Nothing. I don't think it means much because as soon as you saw the graphics saying John Cena is going to be on NXT, I think the people in AEW are already chalking it up as, okay, we're not gonna beat NXT in the ratings. That's fine. They're accepting that it's fine because WWE feels like it's doing a lot in its power to get those numbers up. They could break 1 million. There's a chance. They have the brand recognition, they have the name power, the star power. They could do it. What AEW is doing is a strategy that I like, which is simply just putting stuff that they're good at on TV. Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson. I mean, that's just classic AEW. Put two great wrestlers against each other, let them work some magic. Hangman Page versus Jay White. That's going to be awesome. Hangman Page is probably going to lose that match, which he was, one of the cornerstones of AEW for, the first 4 years. But now it feels like we're getting a focus on these new guys. Swerve Strickland, Jay White. These are two top-tier main event heels who should be AEW champion in the next couple years. And beyond that, these guys should be multiple-time AEW champions. The building of new stars is important, and I think AEW was neglecting it for a little bit, but then again, they've only been around for 4 years. Those first 4 years were building up main event stars just to have. Now, they get to build new ones. Darby Allin, main eventer. Orange Cassidy, main eventer. Swerve Strickland, main eventer. Jay White, main eventer. These are 4 guys who, I mean, you could put any combination of those matches against each other and it would be fucking awesome. These guys can be your cornerstones for the next however many years. All this is to say that AEW is probably not gonna have more viewers than NXT, and that's fine because they aren't concerned with that as much. At least they shouldn't be, because they don't need to fight to be the #1 brand around. They don't need to do that. WWE is a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar company with the name recognition and 50 years of history behind it. You can't dethrone that. What you can do is do something different. They're not trying to do a WWE style thing where, oh, we're gonna, just have people do promos and do 15-minute long segments instead of matches to try and pop ratings. We're just gonna put good wrestling on. Another thing I haven't even mentioned is Adam Copeland wrestling his debut match. It's against Luchasaurus, which I bet if they had known that NXT was gonna have Cody Rhodes and John Cena, they probably would have booked someone other than the Dinosaur for Adam Copeland to face, but what can you do? What matters, in my opinion, for AEW is that they just put on a good show, and the people who are interested in good wrestling are gonna watch the wrestling that they think is gonna be better. Me personally, I'm gonna be watching Dynamite instead of NXT. I'll be keeping an eye out for what happens, but truthfully, I think nothing of importance happens on NXT. We've seen Carmelo Hayes versus Braun Breaker a dozen times. No offense to those two, I'm sure it'll be a solid match, but the addition of John Cena and Paul Heyman in their corners, it doesn't move me. It really doesn't. If you give me Braun Breaker and Solo Sikoa versus John Cena and Carmelo Hayes in a tag match, that's a different story, but it's just an angle. It's just a segment. It doesn't move me. All this is to say, I think both companies are in a really great spot right now, and this Tuesday will be interesting because I think we're gonna get 2 of the best weekly episodes that we get from both companies. AEW's been on a pretty hot streak of good TV. The 4th anniversary show wasn't exactly to my liking. I found myself kind of falling in and out of interest, but it started strong and it ended strong, and I think that's what matters. And then NXT, like I said, has been the best thing for me to watch that WWE's been making. Other than these Gunther Intercontinental title main events on Raw, which that one against Tommaso Ciampa was awesome. Gunther's your top guy. Put the fucking world title on him. Put every title on him. I want to see him carrying all the gold. Give Imperium the belts. Give Gunther everything. Give him everything. He deserves the world. But yeah, basically, there should be no overreactions to what happens this week, even though I know there will be. The consensus will probably be that, oh, AEW's in the mud, the developmental beat them. But the people who are big AEW defenders are gonna go, nah bro, you had to bring John Cena down to beat us, we're still better. Doesn't matter. It doesn't, it's numbers, it's an outdated model of numbers. What matters is, did you enjoy the wrestling? And if they're trying their hardest, odds are you will. This video probably went a little bit longer than anticipated, but either way, I hope you enjoyed it. This is new. This is a new channel, and if you subscribe, that would help me make more wrestling videos, and I would talk about more wrestling, good wrestles. But yeah, plan is more just stuff like this, talking to the camera, almost a one-man podcast sort of thing, fantasy bookings and predictions and stuff, and yeah, that's the plan. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.